Outside the Box Reviews, we're taking a look at the NECA Friday the 13th Part 3 Ultimate Jason Voorhees figure. I was sitting down and getting ready to review the new Part 4 that came out not all that long ago, and I realized I never reviewed the Part 3, so I figured I might as well go through this figure and talk about it. Now, if you're like me and you picked up the original two releases that NECA put out of the Friday the 13th Part 3 figure, the only real upgrade you're getting with this quote-unquote ultimate figure are some added accessories. What we have is basically an amalgam of both the standard and battle damage Jason, but in a weird way we kind of miss out a little bit because it is all one figure instead of two separate figures, which is rare for me to complain about with NECA. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at him and see if he's worth picking up. The big upgrade with this Jason is the quantity of weapons we get, but I'll start off with the ones we already have seen. We get his standard machete, which has a nice kind of metallic gray for the blade. There's actually kind of some speckling in there that looks really nice. You can see the sharpened edge there at the bottom, and then we kind of have the standard handle down there with the rivets in it and the little bit coming off the edge. I don't know if it's a belt loop or what that's supposed to be, but it is a nice attention to detail on it. And I believe the machete came with both previous versions of Jason, but these were each limited to their specific version. So the standard came with the harpoon gun, which this version looks really nice. We have the nice silver spear here at the end. We have the kind of yellowy tan coil back here, or spring, tubing, whatever you want to call it. Good silver detailing throughout where it needs to be. We have the trigger back there. A simple accessory, but overall pretty nice. And then we have the accessory from the battle damage Jason, the axe. So we have a nice wood grain looking handle here. It's maybe a little more simplistic, almost like it's just a wash to add the wood grain in, rather than it being sculpted or anything. And you have a lot of blood up there on the axe head. Maybe too much blood. Like, it seems weird that there'd be blood all the way back to the very end of the blade, and then the edge is kind of clean. So that is a little strange, but it is what it is, I guess. So then moving on to new accessories, we get the pitchfork, which I guess is a really good weapon to give him since he does take out two members of the biker gang with two different pitchforks. I'd never realized that until a recent watching, that there's multiple pitchforks used to kill people in this movie. But we have nice spikes there on the end. They feel a little fragile, so I would be very careful with this accessory. And that's all silver. There's no blood detail or anything on it. And then we do have the just plain brown handle back here. We get a knife, which is decently detailed. We have a nice blood splatter there on the edge. The rest of the knife is silver. There's a bit of a curve to the whole thing. We have the rivets back there, and you can see the metal kind of going through the handle there. It looks pretty good. We get the adjustable wrench, which has a nice blood splatter all over it. Looks pretty good. This one kind of confused me for a minute because I didn't have time to rewatch the movie for this review, and I was just kind of watching a list of kills online. I'm like, I never even saw the wrench pop up, but I guess it's what he uses to knock out Ali in the first confrontation that they have kind of earlier in the movie. So it's not actually a kill, it's just a knockout weapon. And then last but not least, if I was worried the pitchfork was fragile, this fire poker here is probably even more so. There's some good detail on it. We have the kind of hook and spike there at the end. The kind of a more ornate looking handle like you'd expect on a fire poker. This is cool on its own, but I've seen some much higher end figures, custom figures, make this out of like a translucent orange plastic and then paint it, most of it silver so that we could have the glowing orange tip. That would have been really cool to see done on this. That would just have been a neat touch, but still fine that it's just a normal fire poker. This figure comes with two different heads and two different masks, basically making up the difference between the two separate figures we had to buy with the original release. This does come with a problem though. The body that they gave us here is meant to go more with the battle damage version, the end scene version for Jason. He has a lot of blood all over his neck and on his shirt, and I understand the impulse to go bloody with it. And there's no real good way to do this with an ultimate figure, I guess. But because I'm nitpicky and obnoxious like that, it kind of does bug me to have the clean head on this Jason with all the bloody detail on the rest of him. So looking at the clean head, the first thing you'll notice is that the straps on the mask do not sit flush. This was not a problem on my previous version, but it's a problem on both of the masks here. But the mask itself is decent. The shape is okay. They've given it a lot of weathering and detail over it. It's a very dirty mask, not the clean one we see from earlier in the film. Then we have those black straps. They all have the rivets painted on there. And those come around the back of the head. And then we have the 2 buckles back there. And this mask is, of course, removable. The whole thing is very much kind of a softer rubberized material, which is probably good because it won't mess up the face. But I just kind of wish they would have added some glue here on the straps, which I might do myself. The face underneath appears to be exactly the same as the one we've gotten before. It's kind of a closed mouth expression. We have the one goofy eye and the one normal eye. We have his little butthole ear on the one side. We have the vein up there in the head, the more normal ear, and you could see kind of the weird blood coming out of his neck with this head. It just doesn't line up or match up with anything, so it's just kind of obnoxious to me. The other thing about this head is there is a huge amount of paint wash over it. It makes the whole head considerably darker than his neck, which once again is just very strange. It's like these 2 pieces were painted completely independent of one another, and it just adds more to that divide between the head and the body on this figure for me. The head, of course, can be removed. Just a simple peg system in there. And then we could pop on the battle-damaged head. Not a whole lot different on this, except for the axe wound here at the top. We do get some blood effect around that cut, and there is a little more dirt around the mask itself. Same kind of straps going around the back. And unfortunately, the head's not a whole lot different either. There is, once again, way too much black and brown wash over the head on this piece, just making it look really disconnected from the rest of the body. We do get a slightly different expression. We kind of have a weird goofy grin on his face for this one. We of course get the axe wound sculpted in there. The blood effect inside is very nice and dark, and then it gets much lighter as it comes down his face, and we get a hell of a lot of blood splatter on this guy. It's just dripping down, and that of course does line up with the effect on the neck, so that piece all adds up. It's worth mentioning that the axe will go into the battle damaged head and kind of sit there. I think if the mask wasn't on, it would fit better into the head, but really for this, it seemed easier just to wedge it more into the mask than the head itself, but it gives the right effect and looks pretty good. Going further down the body, mine has a weird dusty kind of thing going on. I don't think it's actually dust though, because I basically got this out of the package with all this crap on it, so and I don't have any canned air to kind of dust it off with. The shirt here is rubberized. It's a nice kind of forest green. We get the 2 pockets on here, the one with the flap on it and the one without. The button is actually sculpted in here and then down the front, which looks pretty good. All the wrinkles are nicely sculpted and we do get some blood splatter going down the shirt itself. And I do like that the shirt kind of peels apart here at the bottom. Similar detail there on the back. We get a nice kind of black wash as well on this that adds to the dirty look of everything. And the rubberized shirt definitely does help with articulation when we get down to that part. The sleeves are hard sculpted. Once again, we get all the wrinkles, same paint job as the shirt. Then we have the kind of shortened sleeves. We have the open cuffs here on the side, and you can see more of the wrist coming out. We have a gripping hand here on his right side, which seems to hold most of the accessories pretty well. Fortunately, they all kind of have a similarly sized handle on them. And then the left hand is kind of an open, grabbing hand. I do wish we would have gotten a secondary hand for holding things, because stuff like the pitchfork would look a little better, I think, if you could have both hands gripping it. But overall, this works. And I gotta say, the paint wash on the hand is a little closer to the head. It definitely has a little more of that brownish black wash on it. The wrist kind of has it as well, so it really just leaves the neck as the outlier here. Going further down the figure, we have the pants with some very, very prominent shit stains on it, or I guess it could be dirt, but you know, Jason's pants had to get brown in part 4 somehow, so I'm betting on the poop. But there's some nice sculpted detail. You can kind of see the fly sculpted in there. Flip around to the back, we can actually see there are pockets sculpted in and some seams. The legs have all the appropriate wrinkles in them. We do get the knife wound here at the knee, and I did check back on my old figures. This was the same on both pieces, so that's not something that differs between the battle damage and non-battle damage looks. We get the very wrinkly lower legs, more of that brown going on, and we get some very nice looking shoes. I think they're mostly black or very dark brown with some lighter brown details on them, and one thing I always love is when they actually bother to paint the eyelets on the shoes. It's becoming more and more common now, but for a long time it never happened, so it also kind of makes me happy to see that detail. And of course we do get peg holes there at the bottom of his feet. For articulation, we have a ball joint at the neck, so you can look a little bit up, a little bit down, side to side, as well as pivot. The arms will go forward, back, as well as out to the side. They don't go more than about 45 degrees out to the side, and they are pretty stiff going forward and back, which is actually a good thing in my mind. He bends about, what would you call that? 65, 75 degrees at the elbow. It's definitely not 90 degrees, but it's more than the normal 45 we get on crap like this. And you can also rotate at the elbow. Once again, a very stiff joint. We get a ball joint there at the wrist with an okay range of motion, so you could swivel and then move a little bit up and down, but you go too far and it pops right off the peg. Feels like we just have a waist joint in here, but it's a ball joint. You can go forward, back, side to side. Once again, very stiff. It's actually kind of clicking on mine. It's kind of worrisome. and then you can pivot side to side as well. Once again, that rubberized shirt really frees up the articulation with this figure. The legs will go forward, back, as well as out to the side, greatly aided by the rubber butt, or as I call it, the diaper, which after making my comment about the color of his pants just kind of seems even more disgusting now. And you can also rotate at the upper leg, bend the knee, once again, just about as much as the arms, not quite 90 degrees, but getting close. Swivel at the knee, and then we get a decent ball joint at the foot. You can definitely rotate a little bit side to side and go up and down and pivot, but this cuff around his ankle is fairly rigid and doesn't allow for the greatest range of motion underneath it. For a size comparison, here's the Part 3 next to the old Mezco Part 3. And I know I did the same comparison previously when I did a Figure Wars. I would compare it to the other NECA figure, but it's exactly the same body, so there's really no point in doing that. And I guess I was wrong about this fire poker. He actually doesn't hold it all that well. He held it well once when I first put it in his hand, but now it seems like after swapping accessories through, his hand's too loose to really grip it all that firmly. So that's another bummer. This figure is one of those things that's hard for me to really give a fair review to in a way, because I do have those two original releases, and they were good. I really liked those two. They had their issues. I'm pretty sure both those and this figure all suffer from floppy leg syndrome, and I haven't gone back and watched that old review, but I kind of wonder if I might have even complained about having to buy two different figures for more or less a head and deco swap. But looking back at it, that seems to have been the right call. It just bugs me too much that this thing kind of has an inconsistent look in a lot of forms. And let's face it, when Jason gets the head wound, the movie's pretty much over. So having him in that paint job kind of negates having the right look to go with all these other weapons he has. But on the flip side of things, if you weren't picking up the line back then, if you didn't get those old figures, you get most of everything we got with those figures here. You get a ton of accessories, which are really cool. It's something that I feel should come with Jason. He needs a lot of ways to kill people. It's half the fun of the franchise. But there's just so many little things on this figure that just irk me enough. Not enough to not recommend it on any one bit, but it builds up enough to the point where I'm kind of like, I don't like this figure. I like his accessories, but I don't like him, and for that, he's gonna get a mild not recommend, but a not recommend. There's not enough here for me to fully endorse this piece. And maybe I should save these final thoughts for after doing the Part 4 review, but I'll basically just say it now. NECA needs to do something else with Friday the 13th. I know Freddy's easy to do because it's basically the same sculpt and you could rehash it over and over and over and change little things to make it movie specific. I know Jason requires a lot more sculpting, but we need more Jasons that are more better. NECA's done those retro collection Jasons of the Part 2 and Part 5. Those would be awesome to get in 7-inch scale. Maybe they make a 7-inch body with coveralls on it. Maybe they somehow get the rights to make a William Shatner head sculpt. We can go from there and just kind of cut the Akkads out of the picture for some other bits in between. That's probably dreaming though. And then a Part 7. They did that Part 7 years ago. I've seen them comment on Twitter to the effect that, oh, we already made that. We don't really need to make a new one. That figure is gargantuan compared to the other Jasons. He's totally inaccurate on many different levels. We need a new Part 7 Jason. It's the coolest look Jason's ever had. And I know I'm far from the only one who has that opinion, so NECA really needs to get on that. But that wraps up the Part 3 review. So now we gotta move on to Part 4. Make sure to check me out on Facebook, link below. Also follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Make sure to subscribe and like this video if you haven't already. And until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews.